Hey there, and welcome. We are about to go on this amazing journey. It's kind of like a detective story, really. We're going to try and solve one of the absolute biggest puzzles on Earth. I mean, just stop and think about it for a second. You've got tiny little insects, and then you've got gigantic whales. You've got these super weird fish living in the deep sea, and then just the regular old birds in your backyard. So the big question is, why? Why are there so many different kinds of living things? That's the puzzle we're going to piece together today. And you know what? We are definitely not the first people to wonder about this. Way back, over 150 years ago, there was this brilliant guy, a naturalist named Charles Darwin. He called this exact question that mystery of mysteries. He was so fascinated by it that he pretty much dedicated his entire life to figuring it out. All right, so let's dive right in. This is our investigation into the mystery of mysteries. How in the world do we explain the millions upon millions of different species where each one seems so perfectly designed for its own way of life? I mean, where did they all come from? Now, when you think about a great scientific discovery, you probably imagine someone heading off to a remote jungle or some deserted island, right? But Darwin, well, he was pretty clever. He realized the first, most important clues were actually way closer to home, a place that might surprise you. Yeah, that's right. His first clues were literally in our backyards. He started by looking at the plants and animals that humans have lived with for thousands of years. You know, the ones we've been shaping on purpose for our own needs. Okay, so take horses, for example. You've got these massive, super strong dray horses that pull heavy carts. And then you have these sleek, lightning-fast racehorses. They look totally different, right? But they're both still horses. How? Well, humans made that happen by choosing which ones to breed with each other. And it's the exact same story with sheep. For ages, farmers have been picking out the sheep with the absolute fluffiest wool, or maybe the wool that's best for making carpets, or the kind that makes really soft sweaters. And by doing that, they've created all these different breeds, each for a different reason. But you want to know Darwin's absolute favorite example? Pigeons. Seriously, he was obsessed with them. He was just amazed by how pigeon breeders had created this incredible variety. I mean, some with these super fancy tails, others with really weird-looking beaks, and get this, all of them came from a single type of wild pigeon. It was the perfect example of how powerful this whole process of choosing or selecting could really be. So this whole process, it has a name. It's called artificial selection. And Darwin explained it perfectly. He said, look, nature just gives you these small, random differences. He called them variations. Then humans come along, pick the ones they like, the ones that are useful to them, and they add them up by breeding those animals over and over. The key thing to remember here is that humans are the ones doing the selecting. And all of this led Darwin to ask the biggest, most important question of his life. He thought, okay, if humans can create such huge changes in just a few hundred years, could something like that, something similar, be happening out there in the wild all by itself? So to answer that massive question, Darwin started looking really closely at the wild. And what he saw was that nature is it's a super competitive place. He figured that for any kind of selection to happen, there has to be some kind of pressure, some kind of challenge. Just picture an oak tree making thousands of acorns, or a single fish laying millions of eggs. I mean, if every single one of those acorns grew into a tree, or every one of those eggs grew into a fish, the world would be completely overrun in no time. But of course, they don't all survive. There's just not enough food, not enough water, not enough space for everybody. And that, right there, automatically creates competition. But here's a really important thing. When Darwin talked about a struggle, he didn't just mean like animals physically fighting each other. He meant it in a much bigger way. It's a struggle to find food. It's a struggle to not get eaten. It's a struggle to just make it through a cold winter. And like he said, in this struggle, it's the vigorous, the healthy, and the happy that get to survive and multiply. So what does that really mean? It means the ones that are just a tiny bit better at fitting into their environment, they're the ones with the best shot. Okay, so let's recap. We've got all our clues now. We've got variation. Remember the pigeons, how they're all a little different? Check. And we've got this struggle for life, which decides who makes it and who doesn't. Check. So now we can finally put it all together and reveal Darwin's big world-changing idea. So here it is. It's like a simple but super powerful recipe for how life changes. Step 1, variation. Every living thing is a little bit different. No two are exactly the same. Step 2, overproduction. Way more are born than can possibly survive. Step 3, that leads to a struggle for life. And finally, step 4, the big payoff, selection and inheritance. Any individual that has a variation that gives it just a tiny little edge, maybe its camouflage is slightly better, or its beak is a little better shaped for cracking seeds, that one is more likely to survive and have kids. And guess what? Those kids are probably going to inherit that same useful trait.
And that right there is what Darwin called natural selection. See the difference? Instead of people doing the choosing, nature is doing the selecting. It preserves the good variations, the helpful ones, and it gets rid of or rejects the ones that don't work so well. It is really that simple and that incredibly powerful.
So let's just put them side by side. Man selection, or artificial selection, picks traits that are useful to us. But natural selection, it picks traits that are useful to the organism itself, for its own survival. And think about the time scale. Humans can make pretty big changes in a few hundred years. But nature works over millions and millions of years. And that gives it a power that is, as Darwin put it, immeasurably superior. It's not even a contest. So what happens when you let this slow, steady, powerful process of natural selection run, not for a few hundred years, but for millions, even billions of years? Well, the consequences are just mind-blowing. Okay, so the first big result is something Darwin called divergence of character. The easiest way to think about it is like a giant tree. As different groups of living things adapt to different environments or different ways of life, they start to become more and more different from each other. They diverge. They branch off, creating new branches on that tree of life. And the second big result? Extinction. As new and better adapted forms of life show up, they often do a better job of surviving than the older, less improved forms. So the old ones fade away. And it's not like they failed or anything. It's just a totally natural part of this process of life constantly changing and finding new ways to fit in. So when you put those two big ideas together, the branching out and the extinction of older forms, you get this absolutely incredible picture. What it means is that all life on Earth, you, me, a dinosaur, a little housefly, we are all connected. We are all part of one gigantic, sprawling family tree. We all share common ancestors if you go back far enough in time. You know, Darwin ended his famous book with this really beautiful thought. He said to imagine looking at a busy patch of nature, what he called an entangled bank. All that complicated, incredible, beautiful life you see, it didn't just magically appear. It all grew out of these simple, natural laws. It evolved from a very simple beginning into the endless forms most beautiful and most wonderful that we see all around us. And you know the most amazing part of all? That process, it's not over. It is still happening all around us right now.